Good morning, everybody. There is a saying in German, wenn Engel verreisen, dann scheint die Sonne, which means when angels travel, then the sun shines. I think that says something about the conference this morning. Thank you very much for your introduction. You see me before you slightly quaking. Not only am I your first speaker, but I'm really conscious that I have a very distinguished and expert audience. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to talk about my role as the National Director for Public Libraries for Arts Council England, our role as the National Development Agency for Libraries, and my thoughts on today and on the future. So we took over the role of National Development Agency for Libraries from Museums, Libraries and Archives in 2011 when that organisation was disbanded. And that means that as a non-departmental government body, we are responsible for the development and support of the library offer in England. In that area, we have brokered and developed some key partnerships and conversations which are really beginning to have traction. And in addition, as the funders of Libraries Connected, the former Society of Chief Librarians, as a sector support organisation and part of our national portfolio, we put our money where our mouth is as we fund the organisation which works with heads of service in the public library sector to define what the future should look like for public libraries as a body, as an entity, while still taking into account their hyper-local nature at the heart of their communities. We also lead the Libraries Task Force, which is due to come to an end as a formally constituted task and finish group at the end of March 2020, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So our role as funders, we don't fund core activity in public libraries. That is still the responsibility of the local authority. So with that in mind, when we brought libraries into the Arts Council in October 2011, we initially ring-fenced a pot of money in our National Lotteries Grants for the Arts programme to encourage library services to develop their relationship with us and apply to deliver arts and culture within library spaces. And as a result of those relationship buildings, in 2018, we opened our national portfolio to applications from library services across the country. 6 were successful and are currently delivering a wide variety of arts and culture programmes in our library services. In addition, as I mentioned before, we fund Libraries Connected as a sector support organisation, and those two investments amount to £1.6 million per year. And on top of that, all library services in England can currently bid into our National Lotteries Project Grant programme on the same footing as any other arts or culture organisation. And last year, we funded working libraries to the tune of approximately £9 million. And finally, I have a small, very small, grant in aid budget from government, and I work with the key stakeholders to provide support, including financial, for the development of library service offer. Some of this work does impact on core service delivery as it encourages new work streams and innovation. And key examples of this include our support for staff development through the Public Library Skills Strategy, work in partnership with Libraries Connected and the British Library on the development of libraries to support small and medium enterprises as business and intellectual property centres, and we funded a report into the impact of those BIPCs last summer, and I'm going to talk about them a bit later too. And report funding and research funding is a key part of what I do, of what I spend that money on to help library services understand the impact of what they do. We also work with the British Library and Carnegie UK Foundation at the moment on the development of a single digital presence, which is a working title. That project has just come to the end of a scoping phase and is about to enter a more experiential phase going forward, and I think it could be very exciting for libraries in the future. We support an international work strand with CILIP, and we're also supporting the development of a commercial strategy with Libraries Connected to help libraries grow and build resilience. This gives you a flavour of the power and the range of the work that I do in Arts Council to fund work that helps public libraries explore new directions and develop the service offer. And in doing that, I'm kind of like the spider in the centre of the web. I work with key partners and stakeholders like Libraries Connected, CILIP, the British Library, and organisations such as Carnegie UK, the Wellcome Trust, the Williamson Foundation, Public Health England, and the BBC. And we we also, all the time, keep DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and Local Government Association in the loop, because they have the power to raise the profile of libraries both at national and at local level, and in the case of LGA, nationally in terms of reaching all of their members. So we have a huge role to play at Arts Council in ensuring that the right people are brought together into conversations which yield results with benefits for the entire library network. Which brings me to the role of the Libraries Task Force, which was formed in response to the independent report on libraries published in 2014 after the work of William Sieghart. And here are the aims and objectives for that Libraries Task Force. Building on these, Task Force members developed a programme of engagement and advocacy to raise the profile of public libraries internally to local and central government and externally to the public, and to support a model for excellence in the delivery of library services. At a national level, amongst other things, the task force has enabled closer working between library sector leaders and library staff to agree a shared vision for the future of public libraries. They've made the case to local and national government for continued investment in public libraries and promoted libraries to potential funders. At a local level, the task force has helped heads of library service articulate the contribution that libraries can make to corporate objectives and engage more effectively with chief executives and council leaders. So key successes of the task force are, now I'm not going to be able to read this because I've got my wrong glasses on. They've published Libraries Deliver, the Ambition for Public Libraries in England document, which is a strategy for public libraries in England. And they've developed toolkits and organised workshops alongside those toolkits to support library services in development. They've also distributed Wi-Fi, or enabled the provision of Wi-Fi in every library service in the country. And since we took over the Libraries Task Force in December 2018, we've developed a common communications strategy, which is led by us. But by far the most important thing I believe that the task force has achieved is that it has made these major stakeholders together to discuss key issues and agree not only a common plan of action, but wherever possible, a common voice. So building on that, in the next financial year, which will be a transition year, we will be convening a core group of key stakeholders. Ourselves at Arts Council, Libraries Connected, CILIP and the British Library, to continue to scope the future direction of travel for public libraries based on that work, and other task force members will come in to share their expertise and knowledge for specific areas of work that emerge. And after this transition year, we hope that this spirit of collegiate collaboration will continue and enable a really exciting future for libraries to develop. As we all know, local authorities have been struggling with many challenges around the rise in demand for public services, particularly in the areas of social care, whether for adults or for children. And for that reason, libraries are keen to provide evidence that they are part of the solution to the problems that the local authority has, and not, as a financial drain, part of the problem. The best way they can do that is to deliver partnerships that respond directly to the key issues that the local authority has. In the words of the Ambition document, we should all be asking our chief executives to think libraries first, in terms of how their priorities can be met and their agendas delivered with the support of their public library service when those aims and objectives require community engagement. As I said, Libraries Connected joined our portfolio in 2018 as a sector support organisation, and becoming a national portfolio organisation, a funded organisation, enabled them to fund a dedicated team led by Isabel Hunter as chief executive to develop a future plan and programme for public libraries. And they've done a phenomenal amount of work in the 2 years since that body came into being. With that in mind, one of the first things that Libraries Connected did in consultation with their members was to revise the 4 universal offers that underpin the work that libraries do. They removed learning. They were originally 6. They removed learning from those offers and put it into their vision statement as the bedrock of that work, and combined information with digital and linked all the 4 universal offers to the outcomes described in the ambition document to reinvigorate the whole offer and join it together. Libraries Connected have also combined with CILIP to look at the future development needs for staff, and we have funded a lot of this work, including the Transforming Leadership programme, which has just started, that Libraries Connected are running, funded by us, and also through the Public Library Skills Strategy, the development of a libraries apprenticeship. In addition, the Libraries Task Force has provided £50,000 to pilot 2 aspects of regional support: development support for Libraries Connected regional network and an expert bank to provide external consultancy support to library services. Taking this forward, in December, Libraries Connected consulted library leaders and identified 3 priority areas that would be most useful for library services to receive help with as part of that expert bank. And they were evidence-based advocacy and 2 areas of transformation: in service review and design, and in developing and forming good, strong partnerships. The success of these pilot projects will be evaluated in the summer. In the last 2 years, Libraries Connected have also developed a blueprint for the future of library services, developed a commercial arm to support sustainability and resilience, and they're currently working on an accreditation model, and I sit on the board for that work. So why libraries? Well, the key argument for putting libraries at the heart of delivering local messages is the sheer size of their platform and reach. In April 2017, Carnegie UK produced a report entitled Shining a Light. And to sum up their findings, in England, they found that in 1 year period, more people visited a public library than went to a Premiership football match, the cinema, and the top 10 tourist attractions in the UK. Over 233 million physical visits in that year alone. And on top of that, there were over 100 million virtual visits to library websites. That's an enormous platform. And they also found that the overarching thing was that across the UK, regardless of whether people use them or not, 75% of people think that libraries are a good thing for their community. And in 2018, the think tank Britain Thinks discovered exactly the same thing when they were engaging with communities at the very beginning of our journey to develop our new 10-year strategy in Arts Council. The greatest satisfaction rate with any area that we support through Arts Council England funding is libraries. And this is true not just in the UK, it's true in the USA and in other countries across the world. Having a library in the community reassures people that this is a community they want to live in and be a part of. Libraries also have a vital role to play as community hubs, and I would direct you all to our report on this, which we published in 2017. I was interested and delighted to see that Kirklees Council have reversed proposed cuts to library services and are going to invest the money in transforming those libraries into community hub models. And in Bradford, they have decided not to close libraries, but to invest money from their health budget in recognition of the impact that libraries have on health and well-being. However, we know that despite all the work done by sector leads and the Libraries Task Force and other bodies on advocacy in local authorities and national government, as well as with the general public, we still have work to do to drive home the potential that the public library network has to deliver key outcomes for all areas of government. And this is a key part of the role that I have. Local authorities have responded in different ways to the challenges they have faced, and as a result, the following business models for libraries have emerged in England. So we've now got commercial contracts, mutuals, trusts, and community interest companies, partnerships such as the Triborough of Greater Manchester, and community-managed libraries, as well as those who are still under total local authority control. And a key challenge for all of us in the sector is to ensure that support is given to all public library services, regardless of their business model. Libraries also have a strong role to play as cultural hubs. We at Arts Council England know that arts and culture has the power to enrich people's lives and have a huge impact, whether through an Arts in Libraries social prescribing programme or through introducing people to the arts who had never been to a theatre, an art gallery or a concert hall in their lives, and nor were they ever likely to. And I'd like to share some examples of how that work has been delivered in our libraries with our support. In one of our library national portfolio organisations in St Helens in the northwest of England, 40% of those who go to their Arts in Libraries programme come from the most deprived areas in the borough, and over 30% were from those sectors who least engaged with the arts. In Arts Council England's terms, those figures are phenomenal. 20% on both fronts we see as success, and they contribute in no small part to why I'm standing here before you today, as I used to be head of service there. They also enabled that library service to become one of the first 6 library national portfolio organisations in the country, so pioneers, and in 2016 to be voted for as the best arts project supported by the National Lottery by the general public. Another of our national portfolio organisations, Get It Loud in Libraries, started as a project in Lancashire with a member of library staff saying, wouldn't it be great if we could have gigs in libraries, live music in a safe environment? Now that would get our young people in, as we all know in libraries, the holy grail in terms of customer base. Get It Loud in Libraries has gone from strength to strength and is now operating nationally. They were in Widnes last weekend and there was loads on social media about it. Bands such as Florence and the Machine, Blossoms, and individual artists which include Adele got their start through this programme in library spaces. Some of the national projects that we've supported to be delivered through libraries show clearly the impact that they have. The Reading Agency is a national portfolio organisation, and their Summer Reading Challenge reached its 20th anniversary last year. On average, 700,000 children every year complete the challenge through the public library network, which in and of itself is a remarkable statistic. However, this year, I shall be funding a research project to look at the impact of the Summer Reading Challenge on children's academic attainment in the field of reading and comprehension. So, do children who have taken part start the winter term where they left off at the end of the summer term with no drop in level, or even having advanced in their reading levels? We believe that they do. But what we're going to do this summer is try and get together the evidence and the data that shows this to be so. Some years ago, libraries in England were part of a brilliant programme to celebrate the anniversary of Shakespeare's birth with the BBC. And this year, the BBC approached Libraries Connected to help them introduce new audiences to their virtual reality experience. Their target over 1 month was to reach 6,000 people through 30 libraries, and they were completely unprepared for the enthusiasm. That project, delivered through 100 libraries over an extended 3-month period, actually reached 600,000 people, 100 times, which equates to 100 times as many as they originally envisaged. The BBC were absolutely delighted, and it's therefore no surprise that they were happy to partner with libraries again to look at how they could maximise the impact of their major arts project this year, the 100 novels that shaped our world. Administered by Libraries Connected and funded by us at Arts Council, 39 library services out of the 80 who applied will be delivering programmes that support this project across the country. The quality of the applications was really high, and Libraries Connected had to turn away some excellent proposals. But we hope that we will be able to encourage those who were not successful but who had brilliant ideas to keep those projects on the back burner, refine them, look at the feedback, and think about how we could make them happen together, perhaps as a project grant. Before Christmas, I worked with Carnegie UK Trust, Wilson Foundation and the Wellcome Trust and other leading figures in libraries world in choosing projects for the second round of the Engaging Libraries programme, which focuses on public engagement projects, focusing on research in health, society and culture in collaboration with others. The first round in Engaging Libraries resulted in some brilliant work in terms of supporting 14 programmes delivered across 16 library services, linked to physical and mental health and delivered through libraries. I want to look at one project in particular, not only because it was an outstanding project, because it helped to shape the terms and conditions of this second iteration. The final party, the project delivered by Redbridge Library Service, looked at how we deal with death, the last taboo, in the 21st century. It positioned the library as a safe space to talk about and plan for death without fear or embarrassment. This project used death cafes, talks, performances, workshops and art installations as means to encourage discussion about a subject which can be really difficult. It also involved an animation documentary created by library users which promoted positive discussions about death and dying in multicultural communities, and a celebratory Arts and Death Festival which took inspiration from the Mexican Day of the Dead traditions, and that's the picture on the right-hand side of the slide. The project came to the attention of Bath Spa University, who run a module on death studies, and as a result, they formed a partnership with Redbridge Libraries to explore the potential for future activity and the impact of the activity already undertaken. Expanding this project to work with two other library services, Kirklees and Newcastle, the next iteration is called Tickets to the Afterlife, and it is largely because of the impact that working with a university has had that one of the terms and conditions of this round is for libraries to work with a research partner from the outset. And finally, and I'm glad, Jacob, you've just walked back in, the icing on the cake, I want to look at two brilliant national projects that we support in partnership with the British Library. One is the Living Knowledge Network, and the other is the development of some library services as business and intellectual property centres. Firstly, the Living Knowledge Network, a UK-wide partnership of national and public libraries, essentially a high-profile community with local, national and international interest, making noise about libraries. The British Library created it to explore new ways for libraries across the UK to work as one. It's centred on exchanging knowledge and developing memorable experiences for public library users. And these range from simultaneous UK-wide exhibitions through talks beamed out digitally across the network to leadership and development days. It formed as a pilot in September 2016 with £50,000 funding from us and launched in a new sustainable model in April 2019. And the key objective is to share ideas and spark connections between libraries, their collections and their people. The network currently includes over 20 public libraries, the British Library itself, and the other two founding partners, the National Library of Scotland and the National Library of Wales. And so it combines the reach of three national libraries with the local expertise, connections and communities of public library partners. The first exhibition that the Living Knowledge Network supported with the British Library was about Harry Potter, which, as you can imagine, was a phenomenal success, bringing over 700,000 people together across the network in library spaces. And last year, a group of us, and I was very privileged to go along, went to China to talk about the success of that project with colleagues over there. This year, the key exhibition that the Living Knowledge Network will launch in April is Unfinished Business, a look at women throughout the ages and the previously unexplored influence that they have had. I was at a meeting of the Living Knowledge Network listening to the plans that individual library services have to interpret the theme of this exhibition, and they were absolutely fascinating. I wanted to go right then to each and every one of them. Each one was using the overarching theme to shine a light on local heroines, linking the people in their community to their past and to a collective past across the nation. The combined resources that this network can furnish to bring thousands of people together and enable them to share in that combined knowledge is inspirational. Moving on to the BIPC network. This has been of inestimable value to me in advocating for the role of library services because the statistics, simply expressed in a report called Democratising Entrepreneurship through amazing infographics, are hugely powerful. Since this project came into being, it's done phenomenal things. The report covers the last 3 years, during which time the network has supported the creation of more than 15 new businesses a day and the equivalent of nearly 8,000 full-time equivalent jobs. But what's really remarkable about this is that those businesses, 55% of them have been started by women, 31% by those with a BAME background, and over 17% for those who declare a disability. That vastly exceeds anything that any other economic network can supply in those kind of statistics, those kind of areas. We at Arts Council are absolutely delighted that the highest percentage of businesses are in the creative sector with 24%, but also there's a lot of, there's some information in there about the fact that so many of those businesses come from very deprived areas. These statistics are feeding into a wider discussion about stronger towns, and suddenly libraries are key players and not just bit players. They become an asset to their local authority in terms of economic development. Oh, sorry, I didn't put that one up. Yes, because actually this one, sorry, I forgot this one. This one says that after 3 years, 90% of those businesses are still trading. The national average is 60%. That gives you an indication of the power of this programme. There are also other key work streams which we hope will lead to future opportunity. We know that library services collect and amass a lot of data, but we don't harness it or use it in a focused fashion to demonstrate impact. So DCMS, as part of the task force, are currently working on a project to explore how we can do that better. We've considered libraries' role as anchor services in their community by asking the question, what makes a community? We know about the change to retail patterns and the consequent changes to town centres and what is going to make people visit them. We know that there are huge issues around loneliness and isolation contributing to health and well-being, that transport is a huge issue, that libraries can impact on that health and well-being agenda, on criminal justice and on digital growth. And there are opportunities in every one of these areas and more. In November 2019, DCMS announced the £250 million Cultural Investment Fund, the biggest investment in culture for a generation. And over £125 million of this funding will be invested in regional museums and libraries around the country. And an additional £90 million will be provided to extend the Cultural Development Fund, which uses investment in heritage, culture and creativity to drive regeneration and growth, and which libraries will be able to benefit from as part of broader local partnerships. Arts Council will be managing that fund, and the parameters will be announced later this year. And finally, at the end of January, we launched our new 10-year strategy, Let's Create. Libraries figure very strongly in that strategy, and our Chief Executive, Darren Henley, and our Chair, Sir Nicholas Sirota, have spoken at length recently in the media on the role that libraries have at the heart of the strategy, which emphasises creativity and culture in the heart of the community. We will be launching the delivery plan, which gives more detail, later this year. And the key change that will affect libraries, and you heard it here first, is the option for all public library services in England to apply to our National Lottery Project Grant Programme to deliver work around those 4 universal offers of reading, creativity and culture, health and well-being, and information and digital. This is about libraries being supported to become better libraries, not about libraries being supported to become cultural spaces, to deliver work against their core aims and objectives. This can and should be game-changing for public libraries in England, and hopefully will encourage those services that don't currently engage with us to engage. The value for public libraries is in growing their partnership working. I am doing my bit to encourage every library service to try and use the network provided by Libraries Connected to embark on at least one regional and one national partnership, as well as to grow and develop the local partnerships that they undertake on a daily basis. That makes my work as an advocator and a persuader, a convener and a broker of relationships infinitely easier. I'm going to leave you with 2 quotations that inspire me on a daily basis. The first is from David Lankus, the director at the University of South Carolina Library School. Bad libraries build collections. Good libraries build services. Great libraries build communities. And finally, from the publication The Library Book, published by the Reading Agency a few years ago, from Caitlin Moran. A library in the middle of a community is a cross between an emergency exit, a life raft, and a festival. They're cathedrals of the mind, hospitals of the soul, theme parks of the imagination, and on a cold, rainy island, not today, they are the only sheltered public spaces where you are not a consumer, but a citizen instead. Thank you very much for your patience. 21 seconds to go, and for listening.